is doing to honor history and those who made a difference. Plus, people in the Northeast are in the middle of a massive snowstorm. This is a live look in Philadelphia. You can barely see anything. This is expected to last into tomorrow, by the way. It could dump more than 2 feet of snow in some areas. And if you're upset about the chilly temperatures outside, I guess this puts it in perspective, Riley. This is why we live in the South. All right, thank you, Riley. The number of patients at local hospitals is down. Right now, University Hospital has 98 COVID patients in-house. That is 9 fewer than Friday, and the fewest they've had since December 15th. AU Health is down to 63 patients as of this morning. In the past 72 hours, they've discharged 38 patients and admitted 29 new ones. Doctors Hospital has 61 patients. Our Brady Trapnell spoke with doctors about why hospitalizations are on the decline and what they are doing to improve treatment.
AU Health has not seen COVID-19 hospitalizations this low in nearly 2 months. They're about half of what they were at the highest peak. But health officials say although it's encouraging, it's no reason to relax.
AU says there's 2 reasons cases are down. There's fewer admissions, but also, unfortunately, deaths from the virus peak are occurring more often. Officials say there's typically a lag from when there's a spike and then a certain number of deaths follow. But AU believes their monoclonal antibody therapy clinic is flattening the curve. They're seeing their maximum of 18 patients a day. More than 225 patients since they started, all patients at high risk for hospitalization. AU's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Philip Kuhl, says the community still needs to be diligent.
We're just now getting back down to the level that we were in the July-August peak that we saw. And we certainly don't want people to get the message that all is okay. We still need to be very careful right now.
AU Health says their monoclonal antibody therapy clinic is helping keep numbers down. And coming up on News 12 at 6 o'clock, hear from someone who was treated there and how they're now COVID-free. Reporting in Augusta, Brady Trotnell on your side.
Republican senators are at the White House today talking about a scaled-down version of a COVID economic plan with President Joe Biden. As Skylar Henry reports, it's much smaller than President Biden's proposed $1.9 trillion stimulus package.
This afternoon, a group of Republican senators is meeting with the president and vice president at the White House to discuss their $600 billion COVID relief counterproposal.
It's an exchange of ideas, an opportunity to do that. What this meeting is not is a forum for the president to make or accept an offer.
Senate Republicans have balked at the $1.9 trillion price tag of President Biden's proposal. Both plans call for $160 billion for COVID vaccine distribution, testing, and PPE supplies. Key differences in the GOP proposal include smaller direct stimulus payments with a lower income cutoff and lower weekly unemployment insurance payments only lasting through June.
We're targeted to the needs of the American people, treating our tax dollars as if there are tax dollars, not just money to spend.
The president has consistently called for bipartisanship in COVID relief negotiations, but the Biden administration also cautions against passing a bill that's too small. On MSNBC, West Virginia's Republican governor also called for a large package.
We need to go big, and if we waste some money now, well, we waste some money. But absolutely, we've got too many people hurting.
We hope that we can move forward in a bipartisan way with our Republican colleagues cooperating.
Congressional Democrats say they may act on the president's proposal without Republican support in a process called budget reconciliation, which would allow the plan to pass in the Senate with a simple majority. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
President Biden is calling for $350 billion in funding for state and local governments in his COVID economic rescue plan. Senate Republicans don't have any state or local funding in their plans. A bat, an open market, or something else altogether? That's what a team from the World Health Organization is trying to figure out in China. How did the strain that caused a worldwide pandemic come to be? The team visited the Wuhan Center for Disease Control and Prevention today. They also visited hospitals where the very first cases were detected, markets, and an exhibit commemorating Wuhan's battle with the outbreak. The team won't have any contact with the community as they investigate because of health restrictions. Getting a COVID-19 test kit will soon be easier. A kit made by Ellume will be the first at-home test available in the U.S. Now, we told you when the U.S. FDA gave emergency use of the kits back in December, but now they are finally available. You swab your nose and then you put the sample into a digital analyzer, which sends the result to your phone in about 15 minutes. It's supposed to be 95% accurate. The Biden administration struck a $230 million deal to ramp up production. As adults line up for the vaccine, researchers are turning their attention to kids. Moderna is looking for 3,000 adolescents to volunteer for a vaccine trial. Young people and their parents already seem eager to help. One pediatrician says kids aren't typically the most serious cases of COVID, but they are critical to stopping the spread because they can transmit the virus. A research company in Texas will begin its trial next week.
He's the child of a healthcare provider. He hears the stories and he understands the burden, and I think he's anxious to get past this as well.
Already closed recruitment for its adolescent trials, but Moderna is just getting started. Officials say we will have to wait until 2022 to get answers about what the trials found. Lawmakers are working to remove Representative Marjorie Greene from Congress in Georgia. Calls for expulsion are growing over Greene's positions on school shootings, the violence at the Capitol, and threats against Democratic congressional leadership. One of the representatives speaking out today was the dad of a Parkland shooting victim. Take a listen.
The idea that we have to do this press conference today because this democracy has forgotten how to behave because a party is refusing to participate in it, I'm sorry. I can't sit here and listen to the process questions anymore. That's Jamie. She lives in a cemetery.
Governor Brian Kemp also speaking out today. He says it seems a lot of things Greene's under scrutiny for happened before the election.
They have elected Marjorie Greene to Congress, and she's currently serving. And if the voters don't like what she's doing or how she's representing them, as you all know, we'll have an election cycle that is quickly coming upon us again, and the voters can weigh in on that.
Governor Kemp says voters chose Greene, and they have the right to elect someone else in the next election if they choose. Still, a few Republicans have said they would support removing Greene from the House Education and Labor Committees. In Minneapolis, artists are preserving boards used to board up businesses during protests after the death of George Floyd. The group Save the Boards to memorialize the movement has collected more than 700 pieces of plywood so far. They're working to catalog and archive the boards online to make them available to everyone.
Being able to preserve this history, this art, and this recorded, storytelling that speaks to what happened here this summer and everyone's collective grief and pain and anger and hope for a better Minneapolis is just it's personal and close to my heart.
So far, they've been identified a few artists, but many say they just want to remain anonymous. Today marks the first day of Black History Month and the anniversary of the Greensboro sit-in. In 1960, 4 black college students sat down at an all-white lunch counter in North Carolina. When they were refused service, the men remained in their seats. That sit-in started a 6-month protest that drew national attention. A section of the lunch counter now sits at the Smithsonian Museum of American History in Washington, D.C. Honoring women in the CSRA, that's what a local museum is working on for Black History Month. Tomorrow, the Lucy Craft Laney Museum will open a tribute to women of excellence in the greater river region. The exhibit highlights nearly 30 women from our area. Many are educators, activists from the past and the present. The same exhibit was up last year, but because of COVID, many people didn't get a chance to see it.
It's important to highlight many of these women because for so many decades, history has written out so many important achievements by women. And we've often had this sort of masculine view of history.
Some of the exhibit is virtual, but tours are by appointment only, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. It will stay open through the end of March, which is Women's History Month. If you're an artist, this is for you. The Greater Augusta Arts Council and Lucy Craft Laney Museum need help. The Golden Blocks projects are using art to honor neighborhoods in the Laney Walker neighborhood. The area served as the heart of Augusta's black business community during segregation. They're looking for 2 artists to help with the project. We'll have much more for you tonight on News 12 at 6 o'clock. If you're looking for a job in education, the Richmond County School System is starting a virtual winter career fair today. The school district is looking to fill more than 2 dozen positions for the next school year, from teachers to school nurses to bus drivers and more. This will last all February. We have all the information you need to know on our website, wrdw.com. Sad news for a legendary singer. Tony Bennett says he is battling Alzheimer's. The 94-year-old says he was diagnosed in 2016. Still, he continues to rehearse, and twice a week he meets with his longtime pianist to go over his 90-minute set. Bennett actually has a new album coming out this spring. It was recorded between 2018 and 2020. Okay, you're taking a look at a spacewalk outside the International Space Station today. 2 astronauts finished battery upgrades and installing high-definition cameras outside the space station. It took them about 6.5 hours to do it. This is the 4th spacewalk for astronaut Mike Hopkins and the 2nd for Victor Glover. More spacewalks are planned near the end of February and the beginning of March. Still amazing that we get pictures from that. Winter storm advisories and warnings, they are stretching all the way up to Maine. A major snowstorm has already caused more than a foot of snow in parts of the Midwest. Thank goodness it's not here, so we'll take you there coming up.
Yeah, luckily no snow in our forecast. It is going to be chilly, though, if you're stepping out this evening. We have temps in the 40s, wind chills in the 30s. Look at your Tuesday and some rain later in the week. Next.
Do you suffer daily? VitalityMedCenters.com.
All right, taking a live look from New York City, courtesy of EarthCam. You can see they've got the plows out, workers trying to get those streets clear. Some of them pretty clear, but boy, it is a lot more of that stuff is coming. Major snowstorm is bringing heavy snow, strong winds to the northeast. It's already disrupting travel and stopping the critical rollout of COVID-19 vaccines. Nancy Chen has the latest from New York now with how people in the area are coping with the winter weather.
As the snow intensified in New York City, the mayor described blizzard conditions, begging people to stay home.
At the most intense points, you're going to see 2 to 4 inches of snow per hour. That is extremely intense snow. That's blinding snow.
New Yorkers worried about their less fortunate neighbors.
You know, you got people that's out in the streets too, though, man. Some people got a place to stay, some people don't have a place to stay.
The city was expecting up to 22 inches, leading the mayor to close COVID vaccination sites for both Monday and Tuesday.
We need to keep people safe. We don't want folks, especially seniors, going out in unsafe conditions to get vaccinated.
In hard-hit New Jersey, all 6 of the mega vaccination sites were closed, but essential workers braved the elements.
No calling out sick in healthcare. People need you.
This fierce storm is what forecasters call a slow mover, expected to linger in the region through Tuesday. The Midwest got hit over the weekend with more than a foot of snow in Wisconsin, and the storm has already started reaching parts of New England.
The forecast is predicting a pretty big dump, somewhere between 12 and 18 inches of heavy wet snow across a lot of Massachusetts. So this is one people should take seriously, prepare for, and pay attention to.
If New York's forecast holds true, it will be the city's first storm in 4 years to bring more than a foot of snow. Nancy Chen, CBS News, New York.
I mean, it just looks cold, Riley. We don't even have to feel those temperatures, and I'm already shivering. I mean, and they've got a lot more to come.
Unfortunately, they do. And many places have already got more of that rain chance towards the end of the week, towards the end of the show.
All right, thank you, Riley. Millions are playing the stock market now, but not with the Robinhood app. We'll tell you about some other popular apps that are making new investors thousands of dollars. Gun sales are at historic levels. Have you ever seen it like this?
Never.
What's causing the run on guns from people arming themselves for the first time? Arming Up, an I-Team investigation tonight on News 12 at 6 o'clock.
Injured?
The stock market, it has been a big story all week as new investors are making thousands of dollars using a smartphone app to buy and sell stocks. Robinhood is the most popular stock trading app in the app stores, but it's upset some users for blocking some transactions. Jamie Tucker rounds up a few other Wall Street apps for anyone wanting to play the stock market.
Robinhood gained a following because it's easy to use, but now those users don't want to use Robinhood because it's restricting trading of those Reddit rally stocks. And you may forget that back in the spring, Robinhood had a huge outage, costing a lot of people money because they couldn't invest in companies that were affected by the pandemic. And we just learned that Google has removed about 100,000 one-star ratings to preserve Robinhood's 4-star ratings in the App Store. So there's a lot of distrust. But if you still want to play the stock market without Robinhood, there are other options. E-Trade is one of the oldest stock trading apps. It too halted the buying of GameStop and AMC for a brief time. It offers more news and analysis at your fingertips in Robinhood, and you pay no transaction fees on stock trading. You can also purchase mutual funds and Bitcoin and open a savings account. Webull is another no-commission app that isn't quite as popular as the others. It's got a very nice interface and lots of information and analysis. It also trades cryptocurrency. Many people already have the Cash app on their phone, similar to Venmo for payments between friends, but you can also buy stocks and Bitcoin through the Cash app. TD Ameritrade offers lots of information, news, analysis, statistics, numbers that full-time brokers can use, but it may be too much information for the casual stock market player. But you cannot buy or sell Bitcoin with the TD Ameritrade platform. But if you're wondering how these companies can make money without charging commission or transaction fees, you should know they are all collecting your data. That's What the Tech. I'm Jamie Tucker.
Thank you for that, Jamie. Looking ahead to the next few mornings, we are expecting temps down or below freezing, at least through Thursday morning for us. Have a look at some rain later into the week next.
Stanton Optical is always here for you with our safe telehealth tech.
You want local news that impacts you?
We've got you covered.
We're on your side.
On your side. This is News 12 at 6 o'clock.
Year of riots and a pandemic, we learned one thing is growing you might not expect: gun sales. Have you ever seen it like breaking sales and what it means for Georgia? But first tonight, we are following the promising trend we're seeing in our local hospitals of fewer and fewer in-house COVID patients.
Finally, some good news to report, right? But right now at University, 98 patients. That is the fewest they've had since December 15th. AU Health down to 63 patients, the fewest they've seen since the 11th of December. Doctors Hospital, 61 patients, 17 less than Friday.
To put those numbers in perspective, this is a graph we've put together of new cases every day at our local hospitals. There's still a lot of patients in-house, but you can see that is starting to trend down, which is good news. Now there's some hope for hospitals that things can slowly start getting better.
Brady Trapnell looks at the progress our hospitals have seen in the last month.
It's about half of what we had previously.
Since the peak of more than 120 patients, AU Health has come a long way. This morning, there's 63 patients in their COVID units.
We are seeing a decline in numbers. We are seeing less admissions because of COVID.
Health officials say numbers are down for two reasons. There's fewer admissions, but there's more deaths.
We kind of see a lag of about 10 to 21 days or so between a spike in cases and unfortunately when the deaths occur.
AU Health says their monoclonal antibody therapy clinic is full every day, and officials say it's helping keep numbers down.
And it was a blessing because almost immediately during the treatment I began to feel better.
Brendan Francois is one of more than 225 patients AU has treated in their antibody clinic. He's 62 years old with comorbidities or high-risk conditions.
I do believe that getting that immune therapy kept me from a more severe condition.
I still believe that the data will bear out that the impact of using monoclonal antibody therapy is significant.
Dr. Cool says it likely prevented a large number of their more than 200 antibody clinic patients from hospital admission. This as AU plans to vaccinate its first 1,000 people in Aiken County later this week, taking on a big issue across the community.
There's really not anything in terms of substantive vaccination efforts that's occurring west of Columbia.
A trend both AU and University Hospital hope to change. Reporting in Augusta, Brady Trapnell on your side.
It's not just hospitalization seeing a downward trend. This is a graph from Georgia's Department of Health, and the blue lines show new cases each day. The yellow line shows the 7-day moving average, which you can see is definitely trending down. That's the lowest the average has been since December 14th, since before the holiday spike. Today, Georgia saw 2,500 new cases, the fewest new cases they've seen in almost 2 months. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp mentioned that trend today, along with the decreasing percent positivity rate at 11%. He was asked if AU Health would be considered for a mass vaccination site when the time comes. He says he wouldn't give specifics, but they are exploring every option.
When that day comes, if it's Johnson & Johnson, more Pfizer, more Moderna, whatever it is, then we're ready to roll. If that includes Augusta University and other partnerships, we'll do it. We're just trying to figure out what's the most efficient way to do that.
Governor Kemp today, and like Georgia, South Carolina also saw a spike in daily cases in January, but if you check this graph from DHEC, you'll see the Palmetto State also trending in the right direction as well. 14 straight days of fewer than 4,000 cases. Governor McMaster spoke about vaccines today and says he wants to expand distribution as soon as possible, but right now, older folks are the priority.
It is the older people we know that are most at risk. The average age of death from the virus in South Carolina is 75 years old. So it is the older people that are most at risk, and those are the ones that we must see have the early opportunity to get a vaccination.
One group wants South Carolina to completely change how they're distributing the COVID vaccine right now. DHEC ships doses to counties based on population per capita as it stands right now.
But South Carolina AARP argues DHEC should consider each county's age and vulnerability. Cindy Heiberger shows us what's at stake.
Hank Pavanelli is 73, a veteran and a cancer patient, but he still hasn't been able to get his COVID vaccine.
I should be the head of the line.
Crystal Durden cares for her 89-year-old mother-in-law. After weeks of trying, she finally got an appointment more than an hour away.
We shouldn't have to drive that far away when we have so much medical resources here.
DHEC announced they'll roll out the vaccine using a simple per capita method. Each county gets doses based on their population. Aiken County would get 1,900 doses a week, Edgefield 300. But that method leaves out vulnerable populations in smaller counties.
I can't tell you how disappointed our community is and how scared our community is.
95% of COVID deaths come from people older than 50, and a new AARP study shows out of 14 leading causes of COVID morbidity, older African Americans are disproportionately affected by 12 of them. So if DHEC were to distribute vaccines not only based on population, but also by the county demographics, Aiken County would get 200 fewer doses every week, and Edgefield, which has a higher proportion of elderly people, would get 250 more.
We feel like those populations must be prioritized, not only for their benefit, but for us to get on the other side of this global pandemic.
Everyone agrees whoever wants a shot will eventually get one. The fight remains when. In Aiken County, Sydney Heiberger on your side.
In Georgia, the state does not distribute vaccines on a per capita basis. We checked the vaccination plan on the Department of Health's website and found that this distribution is focused on reaching defined critical populations, but the plan does not elaborate on how they calculate that.
Taking a look out over Wisconsin.
Thank you, Riley. With 2020 in the rear view, something else is coming into focus, skyrocketing gun sales.
The I-Team found a record number of guns sold in 2020. The I-Team's Meredith Anderson uncovered what was behind the boom and why it could mean big business for Georgia's economy.
Good. She's a better shot than
I was scared to death.
Yeah.
I'm not going to even touch a gun because, I didn't know anything about them.
Now, Patty Morningstar is more than just comfortable shooting a gun. She's confident.
First time I shot was bullseye.
Yeah, I got her a little .22 revolver.
Shooting isn't new to her husband, Bill, who retired after decades in the Army and decades of handling a gun. But he encouraged his wife to get a gun last year, making her one of hundreds of thousands of new gun owners during 2020, a year that saw a pandemic, social unrest, protests, and a polarizing election.
My business increased threefold.
during that time.
Could hit exactly.
Gary Slater is a local firearms instructor. Have you ever seen it like this?
Never. And it's just because people were scared. I've trained people as old as their late 80s, and I train youngsters as young as 7.
The I-Team examined FBI records to analyze just how much gun sales soared in 2020. We found 5 of the top 10 days for criminal background checks, which are required to purchase a gun from a federal firearms dealer, were in the week leading up to the shutdown from the pandemic. The #1 day in history is now March 20th, 2020, with more than 210,000 background checks in a single day. 4 other days that very same week, March 17th, 18th, 19th, and 21st, all made the top 10 lists for days in U.S. history. Arthur Peralta is the special agent in charge for the Atlanta Field Division of the ATF. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms regulates the gun industry. But those 5 days consecutive, does that surprise you?
I would have to say yes and no. Typically, we see gun sales go up during election year, things like that. And I think that, during the beginning of this pandemic, it was so uncertain.
Special Agent Peralta says the public shouldn't tie gun sales to a potential rise in crime, noting guns used in crimes are often stolen and not purchased legally.
Most responsible gun owners will keep their guns for their entire lifetime.
Step on in, Shane. I want you to watch.
For Slater, it's the clients he usually doesn't see to train on firearms that make 2020 stand out the most.
I started seeing clients that showed up that would tell me, I hate guns. I've had clients show up that fired one shot and busted out crying because it was against their ideology or their political leanings, but yet they came and stayed for training. So I did see it go across the conservative and the maybe not so conservative movement.
Have you seen a shift in maybe some types of people in some professions that may have not come to you before that are like, now, I need some protection?
Absolutely.
He tells me that includes doctors and nurses and other professions impacted by COVID-19. The I-Team found gun sales impact us locally in another way, too. The economy. The National Shooting Sports Foundation released this industry report on 2020. We found Georgia made the top 10 list for states with the biggest economic output from the gun industry, and also the top 10 for jobs tied to the firearms and ammunition industry, with 4,435 direct jobs and more than 2,300 other jobs linked to suppliers. The report notes recent gun sales have been nothing short of remarkable. But with that comes responsibility, says Special Agent Peralta.
The #1 thing that I always talk about is make sure you secure your weapon. You make sure you put a lock on that gun, or make sure that you put it in a safe.
Watch the target, watch my hands.
And Slater says, take a gun class and get familiar with the weapon, just like Patty Morningstar, who's come a long way in 4 short months.
The guys are saying, if anybody came to your house,
if you need to protect
all they
yourself,
have to do is wake you up.
wake her up to
Wake
protect
me
yourself.
up to protect him.
Since there are so many new gun owners, the ATF says there is some more advice they have for you that might seem obvious, but they say it's actually not. A lot of people don't do this, but you need to make sure you write down the make, the model, and the caliber of your gun, and most importantly, the serial number. They also suggest you take a picture of it and keep it with your records.
So we've established demand is high, but what about supply? Tomorrow, the I-Team looks at an ammo shortage and why that has some experts concerned. We're told things probably won't get back to normal until 2022. New tonight, Bobby Christine stepping down as U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia Company. Teacher groups in South Carolina say calls for a 5-day a week face-to-face learning, that's unsafe, but the state superintendent and the governor are both pushing for in-person learning. State House reporter Adam Mincer spoke with our state school superintendent Molly Spearman one-on-one today. So what's her argument for this face-to-face learning, Adam?
She's really concentrating on the data and the science, she says. She's looking at the recent guidance from the CDC that in-person learning is safe if all CDC guidelines are followed. She's also looking at data from the Medical University of South Carolina, specifically in Charleston, showing that only 1% of students and staff in the school district actually got COVID-19 from the fall till right now during the winter. She's really concerned, though, about the mental health of children and also slips
in their ability to do some of their coursework. She says that specifically she wants this face-to-face learning to happen to make sure that these students don't fall behind and that she would actually teach in person, given how safe she feels the schools are right now. She also says that it's important to bear in mind they spent about $100 million on new different areas like PPEP to really keep students safe. She says that those tools need to be put to use.
There's a lot of money flowing, and I would say that again to the teacher groups who are so worried about going back to school. Look at all of what we've done to make the classroom safe for you, and try it out. I know there's a lot of fear, but fear should not be the determining factor.
This achievement gap is also concerning lawmakers. Just a couple blocks away at the State House, there's a bill calling for students to complete federal testing this year to see how far behind some students in our state really are. Now, just to be clear, Spearman is against this specific type of test in this specific bill, and she has actually asked the Biden administration to need to be put to use.
There's a lot of money flowing, and I would say that again to the teacher groups who are so worried about going back to school. Look at all of what we've done to make the classroom safe for you, and try it out. I know there's a lot of fear, but fear should not be the determining factor.
This achievement gap is also concerning lawmakers. Just a couple blocks away at the State House, there's a bill calling for students to complete federal testing this year to see how far behind some students in our state really are. Now, just to be clear, Spearman is against this specific type of test in this specific bill, and she has actually asked the Biden administration to waive this testing requirement this year as was done last year under the Trump administration. She doesn't want to use these federal tests to assess our students, and she thinks of it as more time outside the classroom. Actually, these tests are required to be done in person, so that's an extra burden. Instead, she wants to use the normal semester testing that happens every year in the spring to really determine whether students are falling behind, whether specific students need summer learning or extra concentration on specific course areas. That, she says, is the best assessment. Reporting live from the South Carolina Department of Education, Adam Mincer on your side.
Adam Mincer in Columbia for us tonight. Adam, thank you.
Today is the beginning of Black History Month, and the Laney Museum is working on a big project to teach us about the history of the Laney Walker area. Kennedy Harris live along Laney Walker Boulevard. So, Kennedy, what do they have planned?
This mural behind me marks several points of interest in Augusta's Golden Blocks neighborhood. This was created in 2019, and it's one of the several art projects telling Augusta's Black history through art. History you don't hear about too often.
Unfortunately, we have lost a lot of the original structures in the Laney Walker Bethlehem corridor. They've just been torn down over the years.
Is now being told through art.
It's not stories that are told only within a small group of people. It's a story that's now being shared with everyone.
The Laney Walker area was once known as